Hi, I'm Matt from eSpares. In this video, I'm going to show you how to fit a new drum shaft to this Indesit vented tumble dryer. Now the process is pretty much the same if you've got the condenser equivalent, and indeed this video should be useful to you if you're fitting a new drum shaft to any model of tumble dryer. Now the drum shaft, that fits at the back of the drum on the outside, and this one is held in place by these 3 screws at the back. The shaft goes through the back of the appliance where it sits in a bearing like this, and the bearing is attached to the back panel, and that just allows the whole drum to spin round nicely. Now, if your drum shaft has gone, as well as making quite a nasty noise, you'll be able to tell because the whole drum will be moving around inside the cavity. You can see on this one the drum shaft is fine and there's just no movement there at all. But if yours is moving around all over the place, if it's making a dreadful noise, then you're going to need to fit a new drum shaft. You'll often be able to get a drum shaft kit like this, which in addition to the drum shaft has the bearings and screws and washers, these bearing pads and seals, which we're also going to be replacing. Now it's worth mentioning that if there's any damage to the drum itself, you can just buy a replacement drum, and on this one it has the shaft pre-attached, so you wouldn't need to get that separately. Now, just a quick word about safety. Do make sure you're unplugged from the mains before you do any work on any electrical appliance. Now, I'm going to start by laying this dryer down on its front. So to avoid any damage to the door, first thing I'm going to do is take the door off. So with the door off, I can tilt the whole thing onto its front. So with the machine on its front, I'm now going to need to take off the top panel, this right-hand side panel, and the whole of the back panel. I'm going to start by removing the air vent. There's just one Phillips screw holding this in place. On this model, everything's held in with Phillips head screws. It's just a case of working around and undoing them all. So there, with the side panel off, we can start work on the back panel. I'm going to start by removing this vent tube, and then we just need to remove this bearing cover and the heater. Again, it's all just Phillips head screws. So that's the heater element there. If we just uncouple the power cable to the heater, and we can put that away to one side. And now we just need to take this fan off. This is just an 8mm socket. So with the screws undone, I just need to disconnect these wires. Before I do, I'm just going to get my camera on my phone and just take a couple of photos just to remind me of how it was all wired in, so I don't make any mistakes when it comes to putting it all back together again. So now the only thing holding the back panel in place is the shaft itself, and that's secured by this shaft collar with this pin going through the end of the shaft. So I'm going to remove the pin. Now my kit doesn't include a shaft collar, so I'm going to need to make sure I keep this one safe and reuse it when I put the new shaft on. Okay, that's the pin out, and the shaft collar will just slide off. Now I'm also going to remove the bearing because my kit does come with a bearing, and I'm going to replace that. So now I can finally take the back panel off. I've just had to loosen the left-hand panel a little bit as well, take a couple of screws out of that. That means I should now be able to slide that across, and the back panel should lift completely away. So you can see the 3 screws that are holding the shaft to the drum. Just going to remove the belt. Just pull down and spin that round. Just watch your fingers, make sure you don't get them caught behind the motor pulley. And you can see that the drum then just comes completely away. So now I've just got the drum itself on the table, so I've got plenty of room, and I can undo those 3 screws from the inside. Now these are Torx head screws. I'm using a Torx head bit on the driver here. There we go, that's the old shaft away. If you've not got any Torx head bits for a driver, you can get a set of Torx keys from the eSpares website. And I just need to put the new shaft back in place. Okay, so now it's time to fit the new bearing to the back panel. Now the one that came off this one is this teardrop shaped one. The kit may well contain a square one like this for different models, but I don't need that one. So that just drops into place and the holding screw goes back in. Okay, and if I flip the back panel over, what I'm also going to do is just take off this old seal and fit with a brand new one. This one is all stuck to the back panel, so I'm just using this is actually an oven scraper, just to get that old adhesive off there. Okay, so that's the worst of the old seal and the adhesive out of the way. I can just now put the new one in place, just check that's the right size. All we've got to do is just take off the backing strip all the way around, and just make sure when you're putting it on, you just place it carefully so that it's on the outside of that lip all the way around. So the final things for me to replace are these bearing pads. There are 4 of them on here, and the seal that goes right the way around the outside. Now the bearing pads should just clip out. So with the bearing pads out of the way, we now just need to take the old seal off, and like the seal on the back panel, it's going to leave quite a bit of the old felt and adhesive on the edge there, which we'll need to go around and scrape off. Actually, that's coming away quite nicely. We might get away without having to do any scraping. Oh, lovely. So I'm just putting the seal in place. I've left the backing tape on just for a second. You should have a groove in one side, and all we're going to do is just tuck the loose ends in there like that. So once you've got it in position you want it, we can start taking the backing tape off and sticking it down as we go, just working our way around. There we go, that's the seal in place. That's all good, quite happy with that. Now I just need to put my new bearing pads in, and they just click into place like so. Okay, so that's great. All I need to do now is start putting everything back together, and I'll start with this left-hand side panel. Now before I put the back panel on, I'm just going to put that washer over the shaft. So you remember the shaft collar that we saved from earlier? And now just pop that in place and get the new pin that came in the pack and put that there, and then with a pair of pliers just going to bend the straight end around just to make an S shape. There we go. So there we go. That's a new drum shaft and bearing fitted on this Indesit tumble dryer. Spare parts for all makes and models of tumble dryer are available on the eSpares website. Thanks for watching.